Ladies and gentlemen, good morning once again. The topic for the panel today is preparing the next generation landscape, 5G transformation in progress. We have a very distinguished panel. We have Mr. Vipin Tyagi. Mr. Tyagi is the Executive Director and Chairman of the Board, heading CDOT, which is engaged in developing various projects at the frontier of telecom technology and in a number of areas, including Make in India, Digital India programs. We also have with us Ms. Swati Rangachari. Swati Rangachari is from Sterlite Technologies, and she's the Chief of Corporate Affairs, a veteran in public policy and industrial sustainability. More than 2 decades of infrastructure readiness knowledge, and we're looking forward to speak more on the fiberization aspects, Swati, so welcome. So we have with us Rajat Mukherjee, the Chief of Corporate Affairs from ZTE India. Is charged with managing the company's relationship with external stakeholders such as government departments, regulator, media, and industry bodies. Specifically going to focus on investments and the financial aspects of 5G. Welcome.
Thank you.
We have with us also Ravi Shankar Rai, the Managing Director of the Savitri Group. Worked in various organizations till 1999. Has seen a lot of difficulties faced by the youth of India in getting a suitable job, especially from those who are coming from rural India. He has looked at all these aspects, and specifically also the lack of capital did not deter him to, try to achieve the goal that he wanted to do, set up the Savitri Group. Is working with more than 5,000 customers in various private and government sectors like telecom, power, education, infrastructure, etc. So welcome to all of you. Thank you for being here with us. Very brief introduction about myself. I'm a Satish Gopalaya. I look after the telecom sector for Deloitte India. I've been with consulting for more than 20 years, focusing specifically on telecom-related aspects, and have worked with a number of operators in more than 40 countries around the world. Just a bit of context before I go on to the panelists for specific questions. We are looking to launch 5G in 2020, but crossing this finishing line, there are several barriers. We need the government and regulator support to enable 5G adoption. We need, policies that look at affordable spectrum and also fueling future investment. There were a lot of discussions in the session earlier today. And we also need, aspects of how do we go about deploying extensive fiber, and what is going to be the sort of pace in terms of promoting investments in this particular areas. And also, there were questions about facilitating test beds, trials, and industry collaboration. It is not about just operators alone, but also the ecosystem of 5G that we are talking about here. India is very unique. One of the discussions that we were having just before we came in here is, how relevant are connected cars, connected shop floors, Industry 4.0 that we talk is relevant from an India perspective, right? What is the India model? We're looking to see how that could possibly be addressed. And also aligning both the supply side and the demand side. On one side you need to have a cost-effective infrastructure. On the other side, you need to have cost industry use cases that fuels possible adoption. So, I just want to start off my questions first with Mr. Vipin Tyagi. So, can you touch upon some of the indigenous developments that we are doing in this space as far as 5G is concerned, which will be very useful for the audience?
Yes, I think, this question is very close to my heart, and I think many of us, in fact. We have committed a mistake in the past. One time in 2G, second time in 3G, third time in 4G. I remember a joke. I'm sure all of you remember that somebody got married and he was having a very tough life. He went to Yamraj and Yamraj said, oh yeah, you need to be admitted to Swarg because you committed mistake one time and your wife was really, really bad. Then second guy was there, he said, sir, I had 2 times. So Yamraj got very sympathetic. He said, you also come to Swarg. There was a third guy who said, I married 3 times, sir, I am a sure case of getting to heaven. He said, no, there is no place for fools in heaven. Okay, so 3% value addition from India. And we expect that the 5G, which will require larger investment, is going to happen without involvement of the Indian society and Indian value addition, not possible. Consequently, and it is fashionable to say that there is nothing that can be done in India. We all seem to have given up. And I'm telling you today, whether it happens for companies outside or it happens for technologies in India, Indians are going to play an extremely significant role in the 5G evolution. And why it is that way? Because softwareization, virtualization of the core, and mobility of the application, the differentiation of quality of service. These are all software attribute of a 5G network. They are no longer hardware attributes. Second thing which is important for us to know is that the radio, which seemed to be the only sure-shot case for having the hardware involved because of the signaling chipset that you require, the work is going on in the country in terms of defining, in terms of making all of that. In terms of the transport, we are far ahead, maybe as ahead as anybody else. CDOT has got 200 gig per lambda system, 16 terabit on a single fiber, which is deployed in Chennai for last 1.5 years. Going to get deployed in 2 more places. We are not able to find enough traffic. So to say that nothing is happening in India is actually comes out of ignorance. And also, it comes to us, most of the things that you see, because I see 5G is seen by everybody in a different way, because where from you're seeing. I was like an elephant, the story. We have to get our act together is the only thing which is required. It means that we have to figure out what's there. And on that I remember, अपना गम लेके कहीं और ना जाया जाए, घर में बिखरी हुई चीज़ों को सजाया जाए. So that's the indigenous story for all of us.
Thanks, Vipin. So, moving on to Swati. Specifically, Swati, given the level of fiberization that is happening and given, I could call it real under-penetration in that space. Right? So we need to at least get to 60 to 70%, the fiberization of the telecom towers. So what is your view and how do you think that, that is going to progress by the time the launch is going to happen?
Yeah, so you're right. I mean, fiberization is inevitable when it comes to 5G, fiber for 5G, if one would call it to be. And the preparedness levels in the country is very low because we have always been largely a wireless kind of a country, and fiberization is a more recent phenomena. And there are multiple issues that is not allowing fiberization to reach its natural conclusion, not only to do with towers, which is 70% or more of tower fiberization, but also new network models coming into play with fiber being dominant, right? So, and on that count, let me just add that there are new models for 5G with SD and NFV and, which is software-defined networks coming into play where both fiber and, with data centers and what have you, it will actually create a very high level of preparedness. Policy-wise, I think there is, the policy is clear. They definitely want to address ease of business from a deployment perspective, that is maybe in terms of ROW, maybe, and rationalizing it. It's for a national cause. So, instead of looking at ROW as a way to make money, but to ease it out fast in terms of permissions or cost or what have you. That's one. But I think the other aspect of fiberization is also, given our terrains in the country, given our challenges in the country and a very unstructured kind of city planning that is there very often in this country, the way the fiber is actually manufactured, I mean designed and manufactured for tough terrains like ours, is where the real meat lies, so that it reduces fiber cuts, it reduces. So when there is a capex investment that the private sector or the government is putting into play, they need to be assured that the fiber is not going to be fragile and break, or there is any such issues. So I'd like to say that, you know, and this is, it's a kind of a chicken and egg situation. The Indian ecosystem around fiber is actually very mature. We have more than about 273 patents as an industry. There is, interestingly, some of our patents are getting picked by other countries, and we're fighting that. The other aspect is Indian fiber is getting picked globally into 100 countries, and they're actually valuing what we're doing. And the extent of Indianization, thank you, you said that before, so, and value addition in this industry is pretty big. Issue lies is that how, you know, when it comes to fiberization, there is a lot of investment required. Yeah. Who's going to invest? We're talking about fiber procurement is only 10%. The digging, the trenching, the real like road and highways kind of work is a lot of investment and very tough ease of business issues. So this needs to be addressed both through policy and perhaps through, you know, a kind of a fund, like a FIT fund, a fiber infrastructure fund. So I'm just saying that, you know, there are ways to address it. But these are the two areas.
Yeah, sure, thank you. And Rajat, I just want to move to you. I saw you asking questions on investment and financial aspects and everything. So, you know, what do you feel are some of the things that government should do in terms of investments, in terms of some of the financial aspects? You know, one is, you know, making it affordable, but what else do you think in terms of partnerships and others that you think government should promote to make sure that the industry players like you will be able to realize what we call as the 5G dream?
Thank you, Satish, for that. And thank you, Swati, for giving me the perfect introduction into the financial requirements of this particular huge leap forward that we are going to be making in 5G. There's no question about the fact that 5G is going to change the way we operate. The ecosystem exists, whether it happens through fiber, whether it happens through spectrum. I don't think there's any question about the fact that India is perfectly capable of making this transition and with benefits to the entire society as a whole. The question which really comes to mind is that in the course of the last 4 to 5 years, the industry has been bleeding for a variety of reasons. 7 years ago, if I remember clearly, there were something like 14 players in the marketplace providing services across the country. Today, you're down to precisely 4. The rest have all exited, and most of them have exited rather nastily, leaving investors with large gaping holes in their investment and with insufficient clarity of where that money is going to be recovered from. Now, an investor does not want a lack of clarity as far as policy is concerned. So I think the couple of things that are extremely crucial to ensuring the success of 5G and in this very vibrant ecosystem is policy and lack of policy change in that duration. In the last 20-25 years, we have had a flip-flop of policies which have, curiously enough, affected some positively and the others negatively, and I cannot understand that. A policy is expected to be common for the benefit of the sector as a whole. It boggles the mind that 25 years after having deregulated the entire telecom sector, we are still struggling with trying to figure out what the policy should be. So the financial health is critical. No investor is going to come forward unless there's policy clarity. That's part one. Part two, I know that Swati is talking about fiberization, and for 4G and 5G fiberization is key. But that last mile will always remain wireless. And that last mile, if it has to be wireless, you're going to have a colossal amount of spectrum which is required. At today's rates of spectrum, nobody can afford to get into 5G. The first session we were talking about the quantum of 5G, and I think one of the speakers mentioned as much as 400 megahertz per operator would be required, or something in that region. If I were to apply the rate which has been applied for an 1800 megahertz band to that 400 megahertz, I mean, we're talking about figures which are not even within one's ken. Forget about the possibility of just finding an investor. So we have to get real about pricing of spectrum. We have to get real about policy and keeping a consistent policy and not doing a flip-flop suddenly over a period of time. And thirdly, once we have this in place, we've got to ensure that all the players in the system, and they're not going to be only just the service providers, the regulator, the policymaker, and the customers. There are going to be a plethora of other entities in this. We have to ensure that everybody makes a little bit of money, because this is a business which requires reinvestment. You cannot have reinvestment if you're going to operate on a ARPU of $2. Our neighbors, China, where spectrum incidentally is given out free, has an ARPU of $12, 6 times that of India. And the overall number of operators remains the same, 3. The overall number of customers is approximately about the same. We are at 1.12 billion, they are at 1.3 billion. So we've got to understand what we are talking about. It's very nice for us to be able to talk about the fact that we are giving the cheapest rates in the world. But if that cheapest rates in the world translates into no money to reinvest in the business, then there's no point going forward with this kind of a business. And that policy needs to change.
Yeah. Rajat, thanks for that. I'll move on to you, Ravi. Specifically, this whole concept of digital India, smart cities, given 5G and specifically the introduction of these technologies, can you just touch upon these aspects, given your organization's involvement?
Thank you, Satish. So we are talking about 5G technology. 5G, everybody knows that 5G is a high-speed, low-latency network. Any technology like 5G is not only a technology, it is a hope for any tech company in India, any like telco, any technology company. So 5G, as I said, 5G is not only technology. It's going to be a growth driver for any and every industry, whether you talk about automobile, you talk about agriculture, you talk about pharma, you talk about any smart city, digital India, 5G is required. Now, any technology, there are 4-5 stages like plan, build, activate, manage and optimize. These are 5 stages any technology we use to adopt and roll out. Planning and education is a first step where we are way ahead from any country. Like I personally, I've been in more than 50 5G conference in last 6-7 months. So we are doing a very good planning, very good education. Now I think each and every citizen of India know about the technology, what is 5G. So that we are well ahead in planning and education. Then, and we spend a huge time. There is a life cycle there is a time to deploy any technology. Sometimes what's happened, I have seen many tender in government and private as well. Making RFP takes around 6 to 7 years. And then build time is hardly 6 months. And there is a race to build the technology, best technology. which is, I think, I don't understand how it's possible. And I was talking to, I'll not take the name, a big project of India. I was talking to a stakeholder last Friday only. So this technology drafting or planning and education took around 6-7 years. And the things which was required 6-7 years is no more required today. And building is very tough because you need to build the entire network in 6 months, 5 months, and there is a huge pressure on builder, contractor, or whoever building the network. So we need to cope up with, we need to set the timeline for building and then activation, then manage, then optimization. So that need to be taken care. Then the question comes about capital and capital. So of course, any business need capital. And I believe there has been a lot of investment done into already into ecosystem. I think daily we are watching newspaper, more than 20 lakh crore, which is NPA. That's also capital. That is not something, NPA is because capital was invested. So we need to think out of box. We cannot go, I'll just give you an example. I keep on visiting Bharat because I say there are two countries in India. One is India, one other is Bharat. I'll take exact date, 9th February, I was in most backward area of Bharat. I met one person. He was just on thela, he was bhuja wala because chana wana bhuj ke deta tha. So I like talking to those people. So I spent around 1 hour with that bhuja wala, and I asked him, how much government has given you? Like there are a lot of subsidy which is going to, like it's a Swachhta Abhiyan, and many subsidy, government subsidy, gas subsidy, many subsidy is going to real villager, a real user. That person said me, because he was selling, his total income was around 2,000 rupees per month, because he was selling around 100 to 150 per day, and in a very rural area. The person said, I am a rich man. I don't want subsidy to be given to a poor people. So this is the concept of Bharat. And they, like, I thought I'm meeting a richest person of the world, because I felt that I should meet him again. I was having only 1 hour, so I spent 1 hour. So he never said that we have a capital problem, we have problem. So there are more than 20 lakh crore rupees involved into technology and into multiple things, into multiple projects. Output is important. And we need to think out of box. What customer experience we have created in last 10 to 15 years? We need to think about that also. There are a lot of companies like in car aggregator, hotel aggregator, many aggregators. They have created a customer experience in India. And what customer experience we have created in 2G, 3G, 4G, and now we are talking about 5G. So we need to take that also in precaution. We have to create a customer experience. Fiberization is very important. Fiberization is like, I think in last 5 years, I have seen more than 5 lakh kilometer fiber has been already deployed. So there is a speed of any country to deploy the fiber. Are we talking about to deploy 20 lakh kilometer per year, 50 lakh kilometer per year? So only fiberization is not a solution. Solution is build a quality network, quality infrastructure, and the infrastructure who should be able to support for 20 years. If you are building road every day, if we are building road, that does not make any sense. So it's important. So rather than building a fiber infra, let's build a fiber, quality fiber infra. Secondly, 5G is not same like 4G, 2G, 3G. It will have a different kind, it is a different kind of technology altogether, totally different compared to 2G, 3G, 4G. Just for reference, in 5G, any UE device, user in device has to be within 500 meter range. So of course the fiber infra are any last mile infra has to be very strong. And ARPU, I don't know who has given a pressure to reduce ARPU in India. I don't know. It is the industry who is responsible to reduce this ARPU. I never seen that any government is saying to reduce, talking about MRP, ARPU, anything. So who is saying to reduce ARPU? Why the ARPU is, like I started using my mobile in 95. I was paying 6 rupees 40 paise per minute or 7 rupees incoming call. I was happy that time also. I'm having today also. Today also I'm paying around 2,000 rupees per month. Although it's everything is unlimited in 200 rupees, but I'm still paying by my choice. So ARPU is not controlled by user or any government agency. It is purely decision of industry. So industry should think about how to increase ARPU. There are multiple ways. Now, if price has gone 100 rupees, you can't think about to increase the price by 500. So there are multiple ways. Like there is a huge cases in smart city where maybe the user may be a digital India, user may be smart city, user may be hospital, user may be automobile sector, user may be different agriculture sector. There you can create a huge high ARPU. Don't compete there. Don't, because customer wants customer experience, services, not cheap price. So all these things, I missed from my question, like you started from smart city, Satish, and digital India. So what is my concept about smart city? A smart city will be smart only if people living in a smart city, living around a smart city and a smart city is smart. People will smart only when they have bread and salt. Bread and butter is luxury for more than 80% people. So bread and salt is the necessity. So I say bread and salt. People will start smart only when they have a bread and salt. And bread and salt can be arranged by employment only. So industry has to take responsibility of all those issues.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
So thanks, Ravi. Thanks for touching upon some of the social aspects as well. Vipin, I would like to ask you the next question, specifically on technology.
Yep.
There's a lot of interest on the ecosystem of Wi-Fi and 5G and IoT and 5G. So if you could just touch upon that.
Absolutely.
Briefly, and you can do that.
I think, number one, no fiber, no 5G. I think we have to understand this. That's why one sentence, concretizing. No fiber, no 5G. Number two, the golden principle from now on, which has been talked about other sector by some corporates, there are 4-step process for us to rethink. Number one is caring. You have to care for your customer. Earlier on, there was a scarcity market. This is a commodity market. The realization about the commoditization should force everybody to care for the customer. Second one is sharing. Sharing with the partners, with competitors, with the users, with the enterprises, whatever assets are created, you have to share so that your cost comes down. And the ARPUs have not been imposed, as talked about Ravi very rightly. Yeah. But we have to live. We can't say that in this country, this much is the ARPU, in that country, that much is the ARPU. We have to have our own price points. Okay? Our own price points are 5% of the monthly income person can give for the telecom. That is the highest anywhere in the world. So if the income is more, people are paying more ARPU. And if you have to work here, you have to understand the supply-demand pricing. Next is, the last one is, so caring, sharing, growing, and changing. If we are looking at the same thing, same business models which have been there earlier, and then, it won't fit. Very simple. Because the commodity and the skimming of the market are not together. That's why changing is what is required at this point in time. Anything that we have done, great, it has brought us here. What will take us forward? So coming back to and that's where technology fits in. Sure. Let me, bring, the technology of 5G will allow you to change your thinking and business. How, you will ask? there is end-to-end path. It's like a lead line business. You can create the sharing of the end-to-end infrastructure with a corporate. So a large company in India has 20 offices, and they want flawless, reliable connectivity, and they are willing to pay 3 times of average. If we can, very easy to realize on 5G, not possible to realize on 4G. So we have to, that's why it is important for us to look at the customer segmentation and go forward with the business model using the technology. Now coming to last part of my submission to the House is that there are 3 things which are going together. These are 3 trees which have been planted almost at the same time. One is the evolution of 3GPP based 5G. So 4G has existed and 5G has come about. In India, we talk about 5G quite a lot, but there are other trees also. One of those is Wi-Fi. And these all are, it's like a jungle. They are having ecosystem. They are dependent on each other. So second tree is Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi has been growing faster than any 5G technology in terms of core technology. So core technology means how do you do codification? How do you have more bits per wavelength, megahertz? All this is learned there, and then it is coming to 5G now. So either the technology is coming from fiber side or coming from Wi-Fi. So Wi-Fi today gives you 802.11 AC, which is now old, about 1.5 year old, gives you 1.7 gigabit per second, and it operates in the license-free band. New one, 802.11 AX, also called Wi-Fi 6, gives you 3 gigabits. The range of a small cell is going to be probably lesser comparable with Wi-Fi. So, this is secondary, but the Wi-Fi will always be dependent on license operators, because we don't have a business model, licensing model, which is like pan-India. And if we don't look at that, then there will be market forces which will actually allow all the things to happen around Wi-Fi. Consequently, Wi-Fi tree also should be looked at whenever we are creating a business model for the end-to-end networks. Third tree which is growing is IoT. And what is this IoT? Again, we jump to connected car, industrial, industry 4.0, all AR, VR, all these this is what everybody knows. So many millions of awareness campaign has been coming from West and then talking about all this happening, as if the 5G is the only thing which is required. But there are use cases where you can actually utilize this IoT for saving money for the rural masses. So what is required? This new technology to save money for the masses or the customer, so that they can pay you, because the overall part is fixed, 5% of the total income. Consequently, there is these three solution we have to look at. Don't look at it in isolation, right? And then we will have a wonderful use cases that we can create end-to-end. We can satisfy a customer, we can care for them, we can share infrastructure, we can grow, and we can continue to evolve and change.
Thank you. Thanks, Vipin. So, Swati, going back to you again, specifically the role of Sterlite and infrastructure sort of development. The companies like yours, the role that they could play, and what is it that you're doing in that space?
Specifically about Sterlite?
No, on infrastructure development.
Infrastructure development.
Yeah.
So, in many ways, infrastructure players, it's a kind of an era of the infrastructure players. And the reason is that if you look at it, the biggest challenge the country is facing today is the lack of fiberization, right? So it also, therefore, is a big opportunity that has panned out, and an opportunity that requires a very high level of effectiveness and efficiency when you're actually rolling out infrastructure. So companies like Sterlite, for that matter, even tower companies, right? So, or even IP1 companies, as one would call it to be, are going to play a very significant role in accelerating the pace of the highways. Like you have the road and highways, fiberization is pretty much the other road and highways for the virtual world, right? And policy recognizes it. I think everywhere when I hear fiber is very critical. So there is a recognition on the importance of it. But there are challenges that exist in the fiber space in itself. And therefore, the ecosystem and the companies have to brace themselves to ensure that through R&D, design, deployment, and maintenance of fiber, we can take in these kind of challenges and get India prepared for things like 5G. So if I may have a couple of minutes to tell you what the issues are. So I touched upon in the introduction that one of the biggest concerns of fiber, I mean the benefits of fiber is untouchable, right? I mean in terms of limitless bandwidth, low latency, that's a very secure way in terms of your data passing through. And in the coming days, there's no two ways that fiber is important. But in terms of the manufacturing of fiber, fiber of the past, and there are certain specs of fiber that are pretty fragile. So if you take India, for example, we have to, roll fiber in all kinds of ways, like, climb the buildings and, and also very often, just because we don't have the, the skill sets of new age fiber deployment, very often fiber gets thrown instead of, so it's after all glass, right? So fragility of fiber is very critical. In that context, I think the industry is working closely with the government and also evolving internally to ensure that there is a high quality fiber where even if the fiber is rolled on a pencil, it's called as A2 fiber. Even if the fiber is rolled on a pencil, it does not lose its, its quality and the flow of fiber continues to, flow of data does not get disturbed. In the same way, there is, and this is it's very interesting about India, right? So manufacturing in terms of intrusion proof, and I'm not sure about fire redundancy, but definitely that's an area, I'm positive it's already done because, fiberization for the defense has actually helped the Indian industry recognize the importance of 20, 25 plus years of robust, virtual road and highways through fiberization. Sterlite's role, therefore, has been a lot of investment in the R&D, designing both for India, and taking our experiences from here to the globe where you have the top 8 operators of the world actually picking up Sterlite fiber today, or Indian fiber, let me just, put it in that context. The recognition that, our ducts are, we have old ducts, right? Some places we are putting ducts, some places it's more. So the recognition that we need fiber, one of the slimmest fibers in the world because our ducts are old, right? But putting forth more than, 800 to 1,000 count fiber into one because the era of tomorrow is the need for higher counts of fiber so that there is more life and more connectivity that can come into play. And that's a little technical, so I'm not really getting into that. But I think the recognition that Indian manufacturing, the contribution to global standards, even through ITU and others, and the fact, and I just wanted to touch upon value addition, the fact that the industry is already producing 70% upward of value addition in the country highlights this is a massive Make in India success story. But that's manufacturing. Deployment is a completely different story, right? And deployment requires a lot of academies that that really puts forth a lot of focus in the skilling of maybe from contract workers to, the folks who are into digging and trenching and, rolling of fiber. And then comes in maintenance. And all this, in my opinion, requires from procurement, deployment, and maintenance requires benchmark standards because this is going to be the turf on which the country's future in many ways is going to sit, or the networks are going to sit, right? So I would urge that in every which way standards is operating standards are put in play immediately for it.
So I know Vipin, you want to add a few comments, but I got a signal from the organizer to conclude this panel. But before I do that, I just want to open up for, a couple of questions to this audience, if you may like. Specifically, around the India business models, anything that you think, the applicability or any other questions?
Yeah, my name is N.K. Jalan. Now, we have been talking a lot about 4G, 5G. All said and done, the penetration in rural area where 50% of our masses live is very limited, and also affordability is very poor. So assuming that 5G, we adopt 5G, do you think this affordability of rural masses will increase or the penetration will increase?
So Rajat, you want to take that question?
Okay, thank you, Satish, for giving me the opportunity. I think that's a brilliant question. I think that's a question which has agitated the minds of the policymakers and the regulator for several years. Unfortunately, there have been a series of misadventures in this area which has resulted in the environment that you're seeing today. When the first only 4G network was started, it was expected to completely renovate the entire country. In reality, actually, today, more than 45% of all the devices which are used in the non-urban area are still not 4G enabled, not capable, and are only 2G types. Now, this particular fact, 3 years ago when it was being discussed in the regulatory environment, was completely ignored, overlooked, and overruled. And I'm using the word overruled because it was pointed out to them as well. However, as a result of that, interconnection rates were dropped very remarkably, made no difference to the end rate that you pay. But because of the interconnection rates having been dropped sharply, the cost of holding a tower in the rural area suddenly shot up because you were not earning anything from an incoming call. So it's total economics and mathematics, no back of the envelope calculation. Details were provided to the right people, but policies were changed, and that's why we are sitting in this mess. So we have a situation, and you're absolutely right, sir. When we move to 5G, 4G, and 2G will all coexist. And we have to recognize this as a policy to ensure that there's sufficient penetration and that is not pulled back in any way.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Amit Pandey, and since we are talking about the digital heaven of opportunities, and we are just talking about making policies for all infrastructure development and deployment. So what will be the expectation for the investment from Make in India things, or we are just going to borrow technologies from other nations? So do we have any agenda on this also?
So Vipin, you'll take that.
Yeah. I think, first of all, thank you for asking this question, because this question we have forgotten for some time. One is that this whole thing is going to open up a new opportunity heaven, as it's been written, for anybody who want to create something new. Let me give you an example. The fire, how many people died in fire in Surat? Do you know this all, fire system is working or not working? Whether the water which will come out from there at 90 degrees Celsius is actually going to work or not? We don't know. We have disasters which are happening in this country. People are dying, and we forget very quietly. These are all the use cases which need to be addressed by people who can come out with the smart solutions. Let me give you an example of, I already talked about the fire. If you put a fiber in this building, you will reduce the cost of copper that has gone for connecting all of these things and bring down the price by 1/10. Okay? But what you need for that is fire retardant fiber. Now, nobody has done in the world. Nobody wants to change. So there are, every sector you go, you find that there are issues like this, which are natural candidate to come on 5G, because 5G provides a connectivity, you know all that, right? IoT, it talks about all of that. Why it is not a case for you to have a fiber and IoT and then monitor it from the remote? I don't understand. That is because operators never thought, they always remained in commodity business. And there was nobody who was feeding them from the back. That's why Wi-Fi becomes important. That's why apps become very important. That's why solving these problems becomes very important. That's why reducing cost for enterprises becomes very, very important. That's where I think your point, it will also be, if we make in India, we can redefine standards, suiting our own problems, that people should not die. CDOT is working on CAP protocol for saving from disaster. It is taken to ITU has adopted that. We are working on, modernizing some of these things. But that's why I said we have to work together, innovate, never be in yourself. Talk about what you want to do to everybody, and then you can connect with the heaven of opportunities.
Thanks, Vipin. And thanks to the esteemed panel for taking all the questions patiently, and thanks for your time. I'd like to conclude this session, but before that, I have an announcement to make. Please participate in the lucky draw contest via the coupons provided by the CII staff. Delegates have a chance to become winners of 2 Amosto products, the tabs, and the prize to the lucky draw will be given by the representatives of Amosta. Thank you for patiently hearing us, and we'll have the next session. Thank you.